All right.
Kevin's
Well,
had
now
enough.
it is time for me to scoot on down to the other end of the couch, and you can take my place on the hot cushion, Kevin. Today, I'm going to discuss your fantasy football footprint and follow that up with some questions. Please keep in mind that I'm going to be very direct, to the point, and brutally honest, and the questions are not necessarily going to be easy. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that question was easy, but before we get into the meat of this potato, first question is, whereabouts do you live in this world?
So I'm about 10 miles north of Boston in Massachusetts, if people couldn't tell from my Boston accent. You guys should have, if you really were going to do this, you should have asked me to pronounce Hunter Henry.
Hunter
I think
Henry.
you just did. Can you say wicked or wicked smart?
Wicked smart.
There you go. There it is.
So I've been enjoying that they've rebooted the Carmen Sandiego series, and they've got this, and my daughter's watching them, and they've got this brother and sister twins that are from Boston, and they just roll with the thickest accent you could possibly imagine.
No cars, no clowns, no dogs playing poker.
Yeah, and she's reading. Snore.
It's fantastic. All right, so obviously you've been playing fantasy football a long time. What is the position that you have had the best luck or results in predicting?
Wide receiver.
All right, we talked about it earlier, so that one kind of was already in there, but I had it in the can, so I thought I'd ask. For me, it's been, typically running back, a little bit closer to quarterback maybe, but, for me, wide receiver, I've been okay. That's probably Jeremy's stick a little better than mine. Tight ends, I'm just awful.
Yeah, I have to say here, though, I've kind of, speaking of borrowing brilliance earlier, I kind of borrowed Kevin's wide receiver construction brilliance, where you kind of backfill and you don't ever become complacent with kind of the depth at wide receiver that you have. And you always talked about you have the Antonio Brown, if we think back a couple years ago when he was on top of the sport and unstoppable for that long stretch, but you backfill it with a Keenan Allen or somebody that's 3 to 4 years younger than that player, and then you continually do that. And I started Dynasty a little bit later than you all, but Keenan, I kind of loaded with that Keenan Amari range of 25 to 27-year-olds ish now, but I've continued to kind of backfill with that, and so I'll toss the assist there to Kevin.
I'll take it.
All right, so I'm a beer guy. I brew beer. What is your favorite final specific gravity?
So I've been into Jack and Coke lately, but other than that, I really don't drink much. I don't drink beer much at all.
So you haven't applied your engineering skills to brewing like most of the people that do home brewing like me. There are a lot of engineers, a lot of scientists, and
like Chris Allen. No, Chris Allen is the man. No, I have not gone into that world.
Yeah, actually, Stompy too. By the way, used to work at a pro brewery. But for me, I like a 1.010, so a 1010. That's what I look for. It's got a little body left. It's not completely dried out, but still nice and clean. Usually, to get to a 1010, you're not an insane high alcohol, because to finish that out, you got attenuations and everything. So for me, 1010. All right, my final intro question: what is your favorite part about fantasy volleyball?
The data. I would say the data. Yeah. I mean, I assume you don't mean actually watching the games, but yeah, watching the games is the funnest, but I think the data would be, what you're going for there.
I still have a lot to learn about fantasy volleyball, but you know how I know that? Because
fantasy volleyball. What is fantasy volleyball? Was that the actual question? I thought you were paraphrasing.
It's too late. I'm editing that completely. I'm removing all of the football references in his answer, and it's going to come down to basically the data and the early part of the answer, and then, but of course, watching the game. Watching the game is the best.
It was, pretty much every time I kind of throw that one in there and see if you're paying attention at the end, do something a little bit different. And, if your brain's ready to be thrown into the real hot cushion, but this one I asked if about fantasy volleyball, and like I said, if I know that I have a lot to learn because I've yet to net a profit. Okay, now it is time for hard-hitting analysis and drama-laden questions. Are you ready?
I don't think anyone's ever ready for this, but let's do it.
All right, question number 1. Analytics in the world of fantasy football provide great insight, but I say that the data itself has many more unexplored areas. Some people have taken to creating their own data, which has resulted in wonderful new metrics for us to add to our toolboxes. This day and age, tools are often stored in bags, or sometimes are my co-host on the Dynasty Self Help Podcast. Speaking of people, who would use the tools of ignorance?
Who would use the tools of ignorance? I hope nobody.
That would be catchers.
You got me here.
Yeah, it's some of these things are just out there. It's my weird eclectic knowledge of random sports things that make me laugh. And tools of ignorance, I've always thought was a pretty funny terminology, but that's what they call the catcher's protective equipment. Yeah. All right, so question number 2. Engineers come in all shapes and sizes. There are different disciplines that focus on various specialties. Mechanical engineers build weapons, while civil engineers like myself build targets. Not all disciplines are created equal, as petroleum engineering can be extremely tedious, architectural engineering is like 2 degrees in one, yet computer engineering is much more binary. Sometimes engineers are unable to cut it in one discipline, like being a full conductor engineer, and have to settle for being a semiconductor engineer. What Scottish engineer developed horsepower?
Horsepower? That's a good question. I'm gonna have to Google that one and then make my kids watch a TED Talk on it. No idea. Some German dude.
It actually would be James Watt.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, Scottish. So James Watt also developed the
power,
watt, right? So he had a lot to do with power in general, but
he also developed the Watt brothers,
right?
And their power.
Future would be like great grandfather of TJ and JJ. So
and Derek, fullbacks
totally
matter.
So I will say I did a little bit of prep target research for these off-ended questions that you might ask, and I focused on the semiconductor. I didn't think you'd go to exactly going to horsepower, but yeah, that's a good one.
Probably didn't enjoy that full/semiconductor shot there. We'll blame it on
It's not a new one.
Yes.
As
All
creative
right,
as
back to the
Kyle
well.
is, some of his are not.
I've heard that one before.
Okay, I'm going to roll in here with question number 3. In some necks of the world, we have various different accents. People might think I have a Texas drawl. They could also discuss how they have the best tacos in LA. In other areas, they put pipe in their bag. Other places in the United States use Smart Pack to park their vehicles. Across the United States of America, we have many different accents, but how many different time zones?
4?
6. We have 6 time zones.
Is it 4 in the States, 2 Alaska and Hawaii? Is that it?
I believe we have, I think if you're going to count the entire United States, you also have to count the Philippines, right? So I think.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So 4 in the land. And then Alaska must be on a different one, and then Philippines is 6.
I think that, out in the very far west of Alaska, you've got time zone.
Yeah. All right. I'll follow you.
It's a fun one. All right. Well, question number 4. At Dynasty Self Help, we focus on the human mind and its part in what we do in fantasy football. Often we do this by explaining concepts and working to better you as a fantasy enthusiast. Other times we teach you that you can frustrate opponents or co-hosts by reminding them weekly of your dominant victory over their weak team in Safe Leagues 289. I often use misdirection on the hot cushion. When light waves pass from one medium into another, they change direction. What is this called?
Misdirection? What is this called? You got me here.
I said, when light waves pass from one medium into another, they change direction. What is that called?
Oh, reflection.
Refraction? You got it.
Refraction.
All right. So we had to help you a little. I had to read the question twice. So I'm only going to give him 2/3 of. I'm going to give him 2/3 of a point because he pretty much knew it. Like that was definitely known. It was only the misdirection that caused him to miss that one.
And we got a good quote out of it. Misdirection? Yes.
No, I always have a lot of fun with this. It's fun to write and tailor these for each and every one of our guests.
I like it.
Yeah, you did a good job, and these are hard. I tried to give you harder questions because I knew you could handle it being an engineer, and you did pretty darn good. And something like refraction. I mean, that's not something everybody knows. So that's pretty good. And so thank you for your time. I appreciate your candid and truthful answers and my insightful and hard-hitting analysis.